Well, I have begun book 2 of A Song of Ice and Fire, A Clash of Kings. And I have read the prologue and chapters 1 through 4. And right away, the tone of the story feels quite a bit different from the first book. In A Game of Thrones, the world was dominated by politics, rival houses, succession disputes, betrayals. But immediately here in A Clash of Kings, something new appears in the story that we didn't really see much of in the first book. And that's religion. And not just background religion, but competing visions of the divine. Suddenly, Westeros isn't just a battle of kings, it's becoming a battlefield of gods. The very first symbol of that shift we see both in the prologue, but then also in each of the succeeding chapters. I think there's like everybody sees it, and that's the red comet. Everyone sees it, but everyone seems to interpret it differently. This is fascinating because Martin uses the comet almost like a mirror for the worldview of each character. To Master Crescent, it's just a natural phenomenon. It's a comet with a star with a tail, something unexplainable, something rational. But for Melisandre and the followers of the Lord of Light, the comet is something entirely different. It's a sign, it's a banner, a divine declaration that Stannis is meant to conquer the realm. And what's interesting is that the book never tells us outright who's right. At least not in the prologue in the first 4 chapters. It may later. I don't know. I haven't got that far yet. But instead, what we see at this point is a world where meaning itself is contested. The heavens are speaking, but no one agrees what they're saying. And this actually reminded me strongly of Tolkien in a lot of ways. No surprise. But in Tolkien's world, the heavens often carry meaning. The Star of Eärendil, for example, is a symbol of hope that appears repeatedly throughout The Lord of the Rings. When Frodo and Sam see it in Mordor, it reminds them that something higher than the darkness still exists. There's light and high beauty there forever beyond the reach of the darkness down here. But Martin does something different here. The comet doesn't unite people, it divides them. Each faction claims it. Each king thinks it supports him. So instead of a universal sign of hope, the comet becomes a symbol of interpretation and propaganda. Then we finally meet Stannis Baratheon, or Baratheon, anyway, which I didn't mention it before in the first book, but I happen to think that name, Bara and Theon, I wonder if Martin isn't doing something with that surname, because Bara is the Hebrew word for create. It's the verb used in Genesis 1:1. Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, God created. And then Theon, that kind of kind of reminds me of the Greek word theos for God. So I kind of wonder if he's using that name Bera and Theon for uh, some sort of symbolism type thing, uh, about God creates or something. But anyway, uh, but anyway, we finally meet Stannis Baratheon, and the description of him is just fantastic. He's described as hard. Everything about him is hard. His face, his jaw, his voice, even his mouth seems made for commands rather than smiles. And the image that really stuck with me is that line about his hair circling his head like the shadow of a crown. Now, the shadow of a crown, that is just brilliant. That's brilliant. It visually suggests kingship before he's on the throne of King's Landing. And I don't think he's actually claimed the throne yet. He I mean, anyway, before he's even on the throne, and it's the shadow of a crown, uh, something that's not there yet, but coming. But it's so a crown made of shadow. It's an interesting symbol for the kind of king Stannis might become. Stannis also reminded me of something that C.S. Lewis writes about justice. Because Lewis once observed that justice by itself can become frightening if it loses mercy. And Stannis feels like that kind of figure. The kind of figure in which justice by itself becomes frightening because it's lost mercy. Stannis isn't corrupt. He's not really decadent from what I can see, and in fact, it described him with his wife. It said he did his duty by her. That is, he didn't really take pleasure in the conjugal duty of the man with the woman. Like he did his duty, and all he got was a daughter. He didn't get any sons. So he's not decadent. He's not corrupt. He's not decadent. He's just nothing like Robert or Joffrey. But he is relentless. He believes in what is owed to him. Storm's End, he says, should have been his. The throne should be his. The kingdom should acknowledge him. And because he sees things so strongly in terms of justice and right, He struggles to understand the messy emotional reality of people. He won't even accept help from Rob or his other brother Rendley because they're also declaring themselves as kings. Um, he doesn't want to be king over one part. He wants to be king over everything, like like the past kings have been. And this makes him fascinating. He may be the rightful king, but that doesn't mean people will love him. He doesn't seem like the kind of king that people would love. But this leads us directly into the biggest new element in this series, and that's the religion of the Lord of Light. Up until now, Westeros has basically two religious systems: the old gods of the north and the seven of the south. But now a third force appears: a monotheistic religion the that worships the Lord of Light, and his name, I wrote it down, but I don't know if I can say it. Rillor. It's R apostrophe HLLOR. Rillor. Anyway, but this changes the landscape dramatically because monotheistic religions tend to carry a much stronger sense of cosmic conflict, fire versus shadow, truth versus false gods, and Melisandre embodies this worldview. And her character, Melisandre, is one of the most striking character introductions in the series so far. The description is unforgettable. She's not described as simply beautiful, which that would be the easy description for a character like this, but she's not described as simply beautiful. But instead we get this line that she was red and terrible and red. Everything about her is fire. Red clothing, red eyes, a ruby glowing at her throat. Even her voice, the cadence that Martin gives to when she's speaking, you can almost hear an exotic musical quality about it. I'd loved reading her line specifically out loud because the cadence Martin gives to Melisandre's lines when she speaks, it's just wonderful to read out loud. Just a exotic musical quality. She feels less like a court advisor and more like something straight out of myth. Almost prophetic, almost supernatural. And Master Crescent immediately understands the danger. Because Melisandre is not just offering Stannis advice, she's offering him destiny. And again, this reminded me of Tolkien again. Because in The Lord of the Rings, one of the most dangerous forces in Middle Earth is corrupt council. And if you've read Lord of the Rings, you know at least I hope you know the connection I'm about to make. Think of Wormtongue whispering to King Theoden. A ruler can be turned by the wrong advisor. Crescent sees Melisandre exactly that way. To him, she is not a prophet. She's a threat to the realm. And he believes he has to stop her. And that brings us to the tragedy of Master Crescent, because Crescent's death is incredibly tragic because he acts out of loyalty. He loves Stannis like a son. And he believes that killing Melisandre is necessary to save him. So he drinks the poisoned wine himself, expecting her to die with him. But instead, nothing happens to her. She survives. And Crescent dies alone on the floor while Melisandre watches him. It's a chilling moment because it establishes immediately that the forces Melisandre represents may be real. Not just superstition, not manipulation, something deeper and something supernatural. Then we move to Arya. And Arya's chapters feel like the emotional aftermath of the first book. She's no longer Arya Stark of Winterfell. She's a disguised boy traveling north with criminals and recruits from the Night's Watch. But what struck me most here is how Arya deals with grief. She doesn't cry easily. She fights. She lashes out. She attacks the other boys. And Yoren punishes her for it. Not cruelly, but harshly. Because he understands something important. Arya cannot survive this world if she lets grief turn into uncontrolled rage. She has to learn discipline, which connects beautifully back to her teacher, Syrio Forel's teachings. Calm as still water. And then the Comet again, because Arya's interpretation of the Comet might be the most powerful of all. To her, it looks like ice. Her father's sword. Red with her father's blood. That image is devastating because it shows how the same object in the sky can carry totally different meanings depending on who's looking at it. And it may be that each interpretation is true in its own way to each person that's seeing it. There may be something to it for each of these people that's seeing it. For kings, it means destiny. For priests, it means prophecy. For Arya, it's loss. Then Sansa's chapter shows how much she has changed since the beginning of the series. At the beginning of the first book, she adored Joffrey. She wanted to have his children. But now she feels nothing but revulsion when he touches her hand. But she hides it. That's the key difference. Sansa has learned how to survive the court. She knows Joffrey's moods are dangerous. She knows one wrong word can bring punishment. So she plays the role expected of her, which shows that she's no longer the naive girl that she was. She's learning the rules of the game, and she's becoming a much better character. She's much more likable now. Then we arrive at King's Landing with Tyrion. And Tyrion immediately becomes one of the most interesting political players in the story. Because he understands something that Cersei doesn't. Power is not just about force. It's about perception. Tyrion points out the enormous mistake they made by dismissing Barristan the Bold, Barristan Selmy. Barristan wasn't just a knight. He was a legend. And when legends join your enemies, it gives your enemies legitimacy. That's something Tyrion understands very clearly, which is why Tywin sent him to control the chaos Cersei and Joffrey have created. And then we get one of the really interesting moments. I don't really know what to make of it exactly, but we get Varys gives Tyrion a riddle. 3 men command a sellsword. That is a king, a priest, and a rich man. And each one orders him to kill the other 2. So the question is, who lives? And the answer, I think, is that power resides where men believe it resides, which is a rather extraordinary idea, because it suggests that kingship, religion, and wealth are all forms of persuasion. Kingship, religion, and wealth. They only work if people accept them. Which ties perfectly into the chaos now unfolding in Westeros. Each one of those things, kingship and religion, at least 2 of those things, kingship and religion, are being thrown in chaos. Like, you don't really know which one is going to win out. I wouldn't be surprised if something happens as far as wealth later on, like some sort of economic upheaval. 5 kings are claiming power, but only one of them can truly possess it. And finally, we return to Bran. And Branch chapter reconnects us to the mythic side of the story. Branch chapters are really good about that. The wolves are howling at the comet. Master Lewin says that they think it's the moon. But Osha says something very different. She says the wolves know truce the master has forgotten. Which feels like an important line. Because throughout the series, the educated world keeps dismissing the old stories. But the wolves, the wildlings, and the old gods seem closer to the truth. And Bran's dreams confirm that. In the dream, he walks again, but he walks as the wolf. And the boundary between boy and beast is starting to blur. Something ancient is waking up in the north. So this is where the story starts to resemble Tolkien and Lewis. In Tolkien's Legendarium, the deeper you go into the world, the more ancient powers begin to awaken. Old songs, old races, old magic. And the same is true in Lewis's Narnia. Behind the politics of kings and queens, there's always a deeper cosmic drama. And I'm starting to suspect that Martin is doing something similar. The War of Kings may dominate the headlines, but beneath it, something older is stirring. So after just the prologue and 4 chapters of A Clash of Kings, the story is expanded dramatically. New kings, new religions, new interpretations of the heavens. The political struggle continues, but now it's intertwined with something bigger. A conflict not just between kings, but between worldviews, between old gods and new gods, between reason and prophecy, between shadow and fire. And if the red comet really is a herald, then Westeros hasn't seen anything yet. So, I'll see y'all next time for chapters 5 through whatever the next video says. I'll see y'all next time.